I'm James Ford, and I'm the guiding teacher for Empty Moon Zen. I find myself thinking of Isa and that haunting haiku. This world of dew is just a world of dew. Even so, even so. 50 years ago today, on the 5th of July in 1970, I received Shuke Tokudo, also called Unsui Tokudo, ordination as a novice Soto Zen Buddhist priest in Oakland, California, from the Soto Zen priest Houn Jiu Kinnett. Peggy Teresa Nancy Kinnett had been born in Sussex, England in 1924. She studied at Durham University, specializing in medieval music, and later at Trinity College of Music in London. She was attracted to the established church and wanted to ordain. But the misogyny of the times, and with that, an absolute bar on women ordaining, she worked as a church organist while turning her spiritual thoughts in broader directions. In 1954, when she was 30 years old, she joined the London Buddhist Society, led by Christmas Humphreys. At first, she focused her studies on Theravada Buddhism, reading everything she could, as well as meeting different teachers and monastics. But after meeting a number of Mahayana teachers and monastics and scholars, including, and maybe especially, D.T. Suzuki, her focus shifted to Zen. In 1960, Koho Keito Chisan, abbot of Sojoji, one of the two principal training temples of the Soto school in Japan, visited as part of a tour of Europe and America. Peggy was put in charge of arranging the London part of his trip. He was taken with the now 36-year-old Zen enthusiast, marking her intelligence as well as her competence. And he told her if she wanted to come to Japan, he would be happy to be her teacher. It took 2 years to get her affairs in order. Then in 1962, she sailed to Japan. Interestingly, she paused in Malaysia, where she was ordained a novice in the Chinese Sangha by the Venerable Sik Kim Seng. There's actually a question whether this was a novice ordination or, in fact, full bhikshuni. Whatever, this was simply an interesting pause. She soon arrived in Japan, where she studied both with the abbot and, as her principal teacher, his assistant, Suigen Yogo. Yogo Roshi would eventually succeed to the abbacy himself. The following year, she was fully ordained and received Dharma transmission from both of her teachers. Reverend Kinnett continued training and eventually was installed as abbess of a country temple, Umpukuji, in Mei Prefecture. In 1969, she obtained a charter to start a temple in London. She returned with two Western disciples, Mokurai Cherlin and Myosin Delcourt. Stopping in California, the plan was for her to stay briefly in San Francisco to learn more about the wild success of Shunryu Suzuki's center. Once in California, and I imagine her thinking about London and England, where Roshi Kinnett would also always be Peggy, and I wouldn't be surprised the climate may have played a part in this as well, and whatever, she decided to stay. Before long, she and her two senior students moved from the Zen Center into a flat on Potrero Hill. There she announced she was receiving potential students. And I became Kinnett Roshi's first disciple in America. Although I feel it necessary to note that Josh Barron says it was he. However, I distinctly remember showing up on a Wednesday and he arriving the next day on a Thursday. Some claim it was the other way around, but they're wrong. I'd been practicing Zen for a couple of years. I'd received basic instruction in Zen meditation from Ananda Claude Dallenberg, a priest with Shunryu Suzuki, and I'd been sitting regularly with another of Suzuki Roshi's priests, Mel Sojin Weissman, at the Berkeley Zendo. Somewhere along the line, I decided I wanted to become a Zen priest. But I was young, callow, ill-educated. I dropped out of high school, joined the Marines, was discharged honorably enough, but early, and without ever leaving California. I was working in a bookstore, smoking too much pot, and I had no sense of who I was or what I really needed. San Francisco Zen Center, of which Berkeley was a branch at the time, didn't really offer a path to ordination, and I certainly wouldn't have been much of a candidate if they had. Kinnett Roshi was happy to take me in. I spent every available moment at the little flat. Before long, she suggested my girlfriend and I move into the flat. We agreed. However, the Roshi then insisted that we marry before we move in. I felt trapped. I told my girlfriend I wanted to break up. She said she would kill herself. We married. Kinnett Roshi officiated, and with that, we moved into the temple. My principal job with the Nassen Temple was to pay the rent. I left the bookstore in Oakland to become a shipping clerk at the San Francisco branch of Tiffany's Jewelry in San Francisco. Practice was intense. I began to lose everything. I'd been counting my breath. The Roshi ended that. She said, just sit. Privacy was gone. I was married, but we didn't have a private room. Time on my own or with my wife was gone. Somewhere along the line, my hope ended. Then my doubt ended. Zazen, more Zazen, reading a bit, lectures and classes, more Zazen. It all drove me forward. It drove me inward. It focused everything on just sitting and what that meant in every action. The Roshi then said she had to go to London to wind up her family affairs. She put her South African disciple Myoun Zen in charge, deciding to take Mokurai with her. If anything, the presence of practice deepened under Myoun Zen's leadership. About a month later, the Roshi called and said she would be returning, but not just with Mokurai. We rented a house across the bay in Oakland. I found a job there, driving a delivery car for a small printing house. When she arrived, she brought with her 12 people. Around that time, we formally organized ourselves as the Zen Mission Society. And it was there at the Oakland Monastery on the 5th of July, 1970, along with 5 others, I was ordained an unsui, a clouds and water priest, a novice Zen priest. It was a tad shy of 2 weeks before I turned 21. Today, 50 years later, all I can think of is that poem by Ryokan. Last year, a foolish monk. This year, no change.